Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Massive roster update as ever over the last 24 hours with the Derke situation on Fnatic definitely gathering pace. Apparently Fnatic are not so willing to let him go. The contract jail situation is once again being talked about here with Derke wanting to leave the team, wanting to go to one specific roster, but Fnatic potentially scared to send him to that team because they might be a serious contender in EMEA next year. Also, what's going on at Bleed Esports? We know that Aspas was meant to be going there. Now that is not the case, and rumour has it Aspas's deal with the team is what caused this whole situation to collapse, as we saw yesterday. Very much intrigued your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Couple of quick things. We're diving straight into Rostermania though today. Plenty of potential global esports tryouts. I will say real quick, as ever, loads of players global esports are trialing internationally, and some people have thrown around Aspas, GE Aspas, right? Like, what's going on here? Now, that is very unlikely. The reality is there are not many organizations that can theoretically afford to pay Aspas's buyout from Lev. And now it's not going to be Bleed because they are getting kicked out of the league, as we saw yesterday for Boom Esports. Of course, maybe Bleed say, all right, Aspas, we're going to pay you the same cash. Come and play for us in Ascension. But I don't think that's going to be happening. And also, even if he did do that, are Bleed even allowed in Ascension? Are they even allowed to win it? Because clearly Riot aren't happy with them right now at all. So thought this was kind of funny as well. The Paper X Boys contract getting signed here, potentially live on stream. Forsaken comes over and, you know, the contract is done. I don't exactly know what this might be, but I thought it was kind of funny. Potential contract extension for those boys going into next year. But other confirmations as well, such as this from Evil Geniuses. Jorgamo is gone. As it stands, we really have no idea what EG are actually going to do. But after winning the World Championship with Evil Geniuses a couple of years ago now, he's going to be moving on. He was linked to a number of teams. I think Levy was linked to, among others. And he is a player who's highly rated by other players. I think like people rate Jorgamo from the fan perspective, but the players do think he's quality. And he's going to be joining, we think, G2. So they got rid of Icy from their roster. They traded out Net for Icy. Then Net is gone. Well, obviously Net was gone. It was on M80. And I don't know where he is going to go next, if anywhere, for the new season. Then Icy came in, did a solid job. But now they're looking for Jorgamo. And, you know, look, the G2 upgrade is a nice upgrade on paper, right? I mean, the idea of trading out Icy for Jorgamo, keeping the other very strong core you have, and a team that did reasonably well this season, all things considered, should make their team even better. So I like the move on paper. And, yeah, I guess there's just a question what it means for Jorgamo. And also whether that G2 team are going to live up to expectations that they will seriously have, or what EG are even going to do. Because they've been linked to a number of players. There's even been thoughts about Ye trialing for this team, and now, to be fair, he's a UFA, so that might be a possibility as well. And, well, let's talk a bit more about that. Rocket Bullet is officially back in business. Like, the guy is, well, he's hitting the timeline again. What a comeback he's made, and the spreadsheets are back in full force. Again, as ever, pinch of salt, and we're going to talk about the Ethan stuff here in a second, but this is how things potentially stand. Demon 1, we're pretty sure is going to Lev, but what I will say about this is, given what we are going to discuss with Aspas in a second, they were expecting, Lev, a buyout from Bleed to buy Aspas off the roster and take him over to, you know, the APAC region, basically. The money that they were expecting to get from that, I imagine they have been using to sign Demon 1, to do what else they're, you know, whatever else they're doing with their roster, with their players. So if all of a sudden that money for Aspas doesn't appear, then they might be in a pretty tricky spot themselves, right? So very much interested in your thoughts on that in the comment section below. But yeah, this is how things currently look in the Americas anyway. There's a few interesting changes over here. I guess it's interesting to note what NRG are going to do as well. Somp, Finesse, we're pretty sure Ethan's going to stay. There were some question marks flying there around Ethan, and he did kind of clarify this and said, you know, what do you mean I'm unlikely, or my question mark? Like, I'm not going to retire. There's a bit of speculation that Ethan was going to retire and step away. But Ethan says publicly that, what do you mean I'm unlikely to stay? Why would I retire when I've only got one champs trophy? I want to win more. So, you know, I thought it was pretty funny. Rocket Bullet says, oh, my bad. Like, I've corrected it to a high chance of staying on the team. Sorry for mistake here. So, look, nobody's perfect. It is what it is. And this is, though, what's going on in EMEA. And it's fascinating right now, this, especially the Vitality situation, I think, because they have been linked to less. We're pretty sure that's happening. They are keeping safe, we would imagine. Trex is potentially going to stay as well. And they are looking at a number of other options. Yampi was linked to the roster, as Aspas has been Derke, right? Fnatic have already made up their mind, we think, like Kajak's coming in, we think, but that's not 100% guaranteed and yet until it's officially confirmed, potentially. Flyers going to Movistar KOI, but I mean, what's happening with Vitality? Because if you're Fnatic, you are seeing Vitality form what seems to be a rather competitive roster, and apparently they might not be so happy to let that happen. Quickly on Victor as well, in the Americas and also elsewhere potentially, he has been dropped from NRG. He wants to trial, join a new team, but as he says, I severely hurt my left wrist a month ago, which didn't allow me to trial for some teams. It's healing well. I expect to be able to play again properly soon. Don't know what it looks like. I'm going to be streaming. So yeah, difficult for Victor, right? Because he would have been one of the players that should have at least been considered by a number of these teams, but it seems like this injury that he's had in his left wrist, not even in his mouse wrist, or at least I think he's right-handed, so I think that would apply. But yeah, you know what I mean, right? So yeah, tough scenes for Victor for sure. But let's talk about Derke, because rumour has it that Fnatic have accepted offers from multiple teams other than Vitality. But Derke wants to go to Vitality. So the rumour is that it's a quite tricky predicament right now for both of these parties, because Fnatic, they want to sell Derke, right? They want some cash for him, but they don't want to sell him to a team that's going to be good. I think that is like, or in their region, right? Like Fnatic don't really want to let Derke go to what could be a chief competitor for them in their region next season, right? They'd let Derke go elsewhere. Rumour has it that NRG were interested in Derke and probably still are. But Derke, he wants to go to Vitality. He's kind of preferring to stay in the region and not go elsewhere. So apparently Vitality are offering more and more money, and Fnatic are continuing to say no, whereas Derke, he doesn't want to go to some other teams, but he wants to go to Vitality. So, like, it's interesting because Fnatic, on some level, are probably, like, holding him in jail, you can argue, but equally, if they wanted just to sell him to some other team that wasn't Vitality, they probably could. So it seems like, well, at least my perspective would be, Fnatic are probably trying to accommodate Derke's like desires. Maybe they're trying not to sell him somewhere to someone that he doesn't want to go, but equally I guess, you know, Derke's got to sign on the dotted line somewhere and he's not going to do that. So it's a complicated one, and seems like Vitality is where Derke wants to go to, but Vitality, if they have Safe and everything, could be pretty damn good, and that's a bit of a concern. So, and Rocket Bullets actually says Safe is going to become the controller player regardless of whether the deal goes through or not, and apparently maybe Safe is going to be the IGL as well. So it's interesting to hear this. What do you guys think about this whole Derke situation as well? But let's talk about the Bleed stuff, because this is still wild to me. If you guys didn't see yesterday's video, and if you didn't, then worth check it out, I think, because Bleed Esports have been kicked out of franchising in favour of Boom Esports coming in instead. Now, we didn't exactly know the reasons behind this, but it seems like it was Aspas related, which is kind of crazy to think about, that they were trying to drop a bag on Aspas to pay a big buyout from Lev and to pay him a serious salary. And when this happens, apparently at least, according to what Juan IRL says, and others have talked about this as well, that other players involved in this situation said, hey, hang on a second, how have you guys got the money to pay Aspas this bag when I've not yet been paid for certain things? So apparently the two parties had agreed on a record-breaking deal where Bleed would pay the full buyout of Aspas, offering him the highest salary as well in Valorant history. We're talking, you know, $2/3 million, $750,000, serious money. And apparently though, after details of this negotiation were leaked, as we saw on the timeline a few days ago, former players filed a complaint against Bleed with Riot Games, citing payment delays from the 2024 kickoff event all the way to Masters 2. Now I think Dayon maybe, and certainly Crazy Guy, they said they had no issues with this. But Egoist, I don't know. Obviously, Yay, I mean, could you imagine if the details around Aspas to Bleed leak and then Yay is hitting up Riot and saying, hey, I've not been paid for whatever, so don't let Aspas go there type thing because they ain't going to pay in the same way they didn't pay me. I don't know. Like, that's obviously speculation, but the theory is that someone, it may not have been Yay, it may have been someone else, said, hey, you know, they're telling me that they've got to take my time on this payment. That shouldn't be how it is. So apparently during this period, only one player received payments. Crazy Guy said that he was fine, so it's interesting. And Bleed has also not had, they've had issues with this before, basically. So all of a sudden, Bleed get kicked out of franchising, and now Aspas is no longer going there, which makes things tricky for everyone, right? Because not only do Lev no longer have any money, potentially, if they're not getting the buyout deal from Aspas, but also, which other organizations could even do this? What Juan says is that his buyout is still steep, some teams in EMEA and APAC have been approached. Only a few organizations can actually afford to make this happen, and maybe they can't even afford it on the same level that Bleed could. So then you're thinking about America's teams, right? Then you're thinking about other APAC teams that could potentially be interested. And I just wanted to share this that was talked about yesterday as well on potential trials that are happening. Rumors that Derke would actually rather be on the bench than go to another team than Vitality, which is, that's a pretty big deal. Apparently, if Vitality can't get Derke, they'll pay for Zeus, that guy who was actually originally linked to Fnatic a while ago. So, but other teams are looking into that as well. Just wanted to share what's said at the bottom here when he talks about in this thread here, Mortadello, on where Aspas might go. And apparently the most likely destination right now is potentially China. And even though Vitality is one of those teams that's talked about Aspas, but he reckons that there's a pretty low chance of him going to Europe anyway. So all of a sudden, people were saying last night when this happened, or when the Bleed thing happened, oh, well, at least Aspas' career is saved because he's not going to go to Bleed, he's going to go to a proper team. Well, maybe not. I mean, it could be a proper team in China, but it could be, it's crazy to think about what could be happening here, especially if this whole Aspas to China thing actually turns out to be true, because, how many organizations in EMEA and in Americas can afford his buyout from Lev? Like, probably not that many, but maybe from China it's a different story, right? So, massively intrigued your thoughts as ever in the comment section below. Just so much happening right now in the Valorant world, so make sure you've subscribed if you have not already. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new as always. Take care, and I'll see you next time.